What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the pod. I'm going to open this up with what we're going to do today. We're going to keep it real simple. My name is Chris. My co-host here, Christian. So one day I was just sitting there. It was on the lake. I was sitting out on the lake. It was a beautiful, perfectly clear night, not a cloud in the sky. And it was a perfect night for thinking, bro. You ever get one of them nights and you just look up at the sky, you're like, man, like, what does it all mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was one of them nights.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, I got to write down some stuff, just thinking about just life. So we're going to break it down paragraph by paragraph. First one says, my life is about me and nobody else. But I also understand that life itself is not about me. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
I think the significance right here, the importance of that is that life is a collaborative process, right?
What do you mean by that?
Because, life, we get to share things with each other, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think when we all come together, it's also a beautiful showing of unity, coming together, not realizing that life is not really just about you, right? You can't only focus on you in life. Sometimes you have to collaborate with others for things to grow, for things to spurt. So I think that paragraph right there shows that don't be greedy. Don't hold things to yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, even myself, I used to almost feel like all these things that happened to me are so monumental and life is over because this thing happened to me and that thing happened to me and then you realize at a certain point that life isn't about me, and that can be a very liberating truth for anybody out there, and you as well, Christian, because it makes you realize that even the worst things that happen to you, say a loved one dies, there are different ways that you can view things so that you can ultimately have it to your benefit. So say somebody dies, you could view it as either it sucks, which it does, but
Absolutely, definitely.
but at the end of the day, that pain that you feel when somebody dies is really just love, because you don't feel that pain for somebody that you don't know. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. We're gonna go to the next one because we really could make a whole podcast out of talking about any of these paragraphs, but we won't want to break it down, one by one.
This is a great excerpt.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it took a while to write.
Definitely.
So anyway, the next one is, I was placed here yesterday in the relative scheme of things in a universe expanding faster than the speed of light, with an infinite number of moments happening all at the same time, which are impossible for me to participate in due to the nature of consciousness.
I think that's something I already got to think about, but...
Yeah, break it down.
I think from that right there is like, so much in this world has happened that we haven't experienced, right? We only see our perspective and our perception of the world right now for the moment that we live in. So there's so much going on in this world that we don't know about, that we're not conscious to, right? So I think those are kind of blinders for ourselves. So I think that when we are finally able somehow to see everything that's happening, I think that's a liberating moment for ourselves. Just being able to understand what's going on in our world right now, being able to see it in different perspectives. I think that's really one thing that will liberate our mindsets and kind of just change us completely for the better.
It's so important. It's so important to do that because, like you said, there's just so many moments happening all at the same time around us. Eckhart Tolle, who's a writer, actually has, a book called The Power of Now. And it's essentially saying, as a matter of conscious experience, there's absolutely nowhere else that you can ever be than right now.
Right, in the present moment.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
in the present moment, because things have happened already, and they've happened, and you can learn from that. But at the end of the day, it already happened, and it's over with.
Right.
Even if the same thing happens again, that is over with. That happened on December 31st of 2004 or whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's over.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's over with. I kind of want to talk about the second half of that too, which is the amount of moments that are happening each moment where we can't even be aware of because of the fact that we can only live in one moment. So there's quintillions of moments on Earth alone happening at this very second that we'll have no idea about because we're sitting here filming this podcast talking about what we're talking about.
Right.
Like, there's people getting in arguments with their parents. There's people, there's a lot of bad stuff happening too. I'm not even going to lie to you, which is another thing, another technique for perspective, to appreciate what we have. Because if you really think about it, a good portion of the world is enslaved right now.
Absolutely, honestly, yeah.
Enslaved. I mean, think about it. Even, I don't want to get all political on y'all, but even Tesla's those batteries, those lithium batteries, they come from mines in India and all these different places out in Europe and Asia and places like that.
It's very true.
And these people are working for cents on the dollar, right? So I really don't want to get political on y'all. You know, do with that what you will, but use it in a way that will at least make you appreciate and not take for granted what we have. You know, we do live in a first world country, and I think that goes over our heads a lot of times.
I think you have to understand the moment that you're in and just take gratitude for it. Understanding that you're in a better place than a lot of other people. But life is also a journey. It's a progress. It's a work in progress. You have to continually understand that you have to get better 1% every single day. So you have to understand that what are you fighting for every day when you get up? What is your motivation to get up? Have something. Fight for your purpose. Knowing that in this life, you were put on this earth for something. So you are the one that makes your life. You are the one that makes the decisions for your life. So understand that you are driving your purpose.
So I want to ask you this, actually, and that's a great point that you just made, but I just want to, I'm sure you'll have an answer for this, but what would you say to somebody who maybe wasn't dealt the best hand in life? Maybe they grew up in one of those third world countries and had to work for cents on the dollar, and they come here maybe they come here or they just know English, and somehow they're watching this pod, you know, but they want to know, what about me? I was dealt a really bad hand in life. What's my purpose? How do I achieve that?
I think if you've been placed in that predicament, I think no matter what, keep fighting. Understand that in this life, it's always going to be a journey. And you might start off on the wrong foot, but that doesn't mean you finish off on the wrong foot. Your starting place was just the position that you were in. But just know that everything can get better. And will get better. But you have to put in the work. You got to put in that determination, that pain. Because somebody else has been in your shoes and they did it. So what does that mean for you? That means that you could do it too. Absolutely. I mean, it's like how, you know, I don't want to bring music into this or nothing, but it's like rappers that say they came from nothing. And you see their story and see how they worked up to the top. You could just take that and just apply that to yourself. What did they do? How do I work towards that?
You know,
so it's just creating like little goals for yourself and just setting the bar high and just keep getting it.
Dude, that's so interesting because I hear people use that as an argument against God sometimes, and it is a very difficult question to answer. And for the record, I believe in God. We both believe in God. We're actually very, very spiritual people. I don't know if I would necessarily call myself religious because I feel like religion divides a lot of people personally. But like I was saying, that people use that as an argument against God, and it's a very difficult question. I'd like to ask you that. If God was real, why does he allow people to be born into slavery? Why does he allow people to die before they even get the chance to live?
You know,
that's a really hard question.
That's a hard question for me to answer. I don't think I can really give the best answer, but my answer is going to be that no matter what, I mean, I can't tell you what God does. That's not my part. I can't tell you what God's decisions are. I can't really tell you that. But from my perspective, I will say that everything that God does is for a reason. And we understand that because we're spiritual, religious people. But I'm saying that everything God does is for a purpose and for a reason. We might not understand it, right?
Not now.
No. But until that later life, we're never really fully going to understand it. So you just have to live your life knowing that whatever happens, it happens. And you just have to continue to build on it. And so I think that's just going to be my answer because right now I can't really give, you know, an answer to that question. I would have to like really think about it and come back to it.
That's a really maybe we'll talk about that next spot if y'all are interested in that. But let's go ahead and keep it moving on to the next one. That was a really tough question.
For sure.
And you actually did a really good job with that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
If I have a beam of light in my hands right now, and I'm holding it above the earth, and I go, 1 second, let it go for 1 second. It already circumnavigated the world. It means it went around the world 8 times in that 1 second.
Wow.
And I'm the universe is nothing but blank empty space pretty much. You know how far our nearest star is? The sun?
Probably millions of miles away from us.
93 million miles away.
Jesus.
And do you know where the nearest star after that is in the same galaxy, in the Milky Way?
Probably billions of miles, another million miles away.
It's Alpha Proxima, and it's 4.2 something like that light years away. So if you're traveling at that 8 times around the Earth in 1 second, if you're traveling at that speed for 4.2 years, every second for 4.2 years, you might reach the next star. You might.
You might.
And then get this. Once you get there, good luck getting back.
Right.
You have no idea how to get back. No idea. Anyway, that just blows my mind.
It's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
It's crazy. I don't think we'll ever, in the history of the world, be able to fully ever understand space. It's like we haven't even discovered a true portion of the ocean. You know how crazy that is? Ocean is a scary place, man.
Oh, yeah. I think it was only like 5% of the ocean we discovered.
Yeah.
Like, think of all the other stuff. Like, dude, Atlantis could be anywhere. We've already talked about Atlantis once on the pod, but it's crazy.
Absolutely.
And these things, you know, they're myths, and a lot of people just chalk it up to a myth and a fairy tale and this and that. Mm-hmm. I think it's really impossible for us to say. And as a matter of fact, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. It's all about context. And his things, everything is about context. My addition to that is life is about the context you have and the context you lack. You know what I'm saying? Because Absolutely. As a matter of conscious experience, I'm going to keep saying that, as a matter of conscious experience, you only know what you've seen.
Right.
You can't guarantee nothing else. And you can't even necessarily guarantee what you've seen because you don't know the past behind what happened there.
Exactly. So,
dude, that's
this crazy. Is good stuff. I hope y'all hearing this for real.
This is madness, dude. Yeah. So, the next question is, how can life be about me? With all of these moments happening at each and every single moment, how can life be about me? And I like to ask people that, because I used to think, like I said, life, that you know, everything revolved around me, and everything that happens to me is my fault, and I had something to do with it. But in reality, it's not about what happens to you, it's about what you do with that. And it's not personal. Life isn't personal. How could it be? How could life be personal? You got 8 billion people here.
I think off of that is like, I think a lot of times people are so consumed with themselves, right? They're focused about that self-image, that self-projection, right? And I think a lot of times is we get the opportunity, like we miss the opportunity, I'm going to say we miss the opportunity to really view society, right? Because we're so focused on ourselves. So we're so conscious in our conscious head, we're thinking about, you know, only you, your greed, your pride, everything, your ego. We're so focused on that, right? But then we miss the opportunity for us to be in society. Like I said, life is a collaborative process. Talking to people, conversating with people, understanding people. We miss the opportunity to do that. And I think that's a beautiful part of life. So I think sometimes you have to take the focus off of yourself and focusing on opening up yourself to other people and being in this world and being a part of this society.
Man, that really is a great point. And that I hope y'all heard that too. That reminds me as well of this homeless guy. It was just this homeless, like, I think he was addicted to crack too. I think they said that. I think he said that, as a matter of fact. But he was saying, you know, people are in such a hurry to get where they're going, but they're going to be so discouraged when they get there because they missed out on all the people they could have talked to and things they could have seen and all these things that they missed because they're so caught up in their own minds. And this gets into the mind's processes and how the mind kind of takes away from a lot of the success we can see in our lives. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. But, dude, that was a great point, and I'm glad you said that. So, remember the last one was, how can life be about me? And then the next one is, I also noticed that I walk around this planet like I have everything all together. Like I know what's going on. Like I know what should be going on.
I'll go off of that.
Please.
Because I think a lot of times we try to act like we all have it together.
Oh,
like
every second.
Like we're this perfect person and like we're all built up and we have everything going for us. But in reality, it's not, right? I could come in here, I could talk like I know everything. I got everything together. I got on the fly outfits. I got all this. I got whatever. But in reality, my world cannot be going so perfect. And it could be the same for that other person. They're just trying to drag everything to the next day. Their goal is just to make it to the next day. But in reality, they're showing that they're composed. They have a little bit of edge to themselves. But they have to do that in order to hide what they have going on in their world, right? They don't want to let the world see what they got going on the inside. And I think that's why everybody carries themselves in a certain manner, because they don't want anybody to know what they truly have going on. Because they got that pain, they got that hurt, they got whatever's going on the inside that they don't want nobody to see. And I think that's why certain people carry themselves in certain ways, because we don't know what we don't know that. And we can't assume what somebody's been through. I can't tell you what you've been through. You can't tell me what I've been through.
Very simple.
It's only in my head and what I tell you. So it's really crazy when you think about it. And like I said, how can life be about me, right? How can life be about me?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that reminds me of the fact that you were talking about struggling and everyone having their problems. That's really a great point. And it's really an ancient Buddhist teaching. Suffering is caused by fears and desires. So in essence, suffering is caused by your mind. You know what I mean? Because you want things to be a certain way. You desire that they are a certain way and they're not. Or you fear that things might be a way that you do not want them to be. So at the end of the day, life in general, like everybody is having their problems, and who am I to say what someone's problem is to them? Who am I to say what somebody did and why they did it? How can I know that? I just had this argument with somebody the other day. Again, I'm not going to name names, but we were driving, and there was this driver ahead of us, and there's no doubt about it. He was just awful. Like he was like cutting in front of you and like all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But he was sitting there. He was like that guy. He was doing it on purpose, and he was afraid of me. I was like, how do you know that? How do you know any of that?
Right.
That he did it on purpose. Number one. And number two, that he was afraid of you, and that's because we pulled up next to him and he was like looking at us and stuff, and like, yeah, just like I said, he was afraid of me. I was like, dude, how do you know that?
You could never assume anything until you truly know it, right? But I did want to bring up a point.
Please.
And I watched a guy by the name of Wall Street Trapper, and he's really like a financial investment type of guy. You watch him. He's making money on the market. He does a lot of things with stocks, right, and financials.
Who is it?
And his name is Wall Street Trapper on YouTube, Instagram, all his social media platforms. Really look into him. He's a good guy. But he was talking about how pain. He was talking about pain, right? And he's talking about when you get an injury, right? Let's say you break your arm, right?
Yeah.
It's pain, right? That's momentary pain. But if you don't go to the doctor, you don't get it fixed, it turns into suffering, right? And suffering lasts longer when you don't fight the pain. Right? When you don't attack the pain. So, what he was trying to say is, as soon as you narrate the pain, as soon as you address the pain, it releases your suffering. It releases the amount of time that you suffer for. So the things that we can do to deal with our pain and eliminate it quicker will allow us to live our life where we don't have to suffer as much.
So what you're saying, let me make sure I understand what you're saying here. You're basically saying that you have to deal with the problem first.
Yes.
Before you try and push it back and expect to heal.
Because if you don't address the problem, what's the solution that you're narrating for yourself? What are you trying to address? If you're not addressing the problem, right? If that's where the true source of pain is, and you don't address it, you're just going to keep suffering from what you're dealing with. But if you do address it, and you do take the necessary steps in order to get over it, then you're not going to suffer from the problem as much, because you addressed it and you were able to find a solution or come up with something that heals the pain quicker.
Man, a lot of people, I struggle with that even to this day. But the fact of being aware of it just helps so much more, because you catch yourself, maybe something happened, I don't know, like a week, a month, a year ago, whatever, and it comes back up in your mind. The reality of the situation is that comes back up in your mind because you haven't dealt with the root cause of that problem.
Right, absolutely. You have to do with the root of the problem.
But just realizing that, what you just said, realizing that can help you take 1 second before that and say, hold on a minute, like, I didn't deal with the root of this problem. Let me not just push it back this time. Let me not just say, let's think about something else. Absolutely. Let me at least think on it, feel the emotions that come with it. Why am I feeling this? Who is it that feels this emotion, which is a whole nother realm.
That's a whole nother thing we gotta get into.
You know what I'm saying? Because as a matter of conscious experience, who is it that is conscious? A lot of people say that I'm Chris, I'm 5'10", I do this, I do that, this is my job, this is my family, and this and that. But the reality is, how can you be, how can 5'10" be your identity? How can your name be your identity? Because when you were younger, you were, 3 feet at one point. You're still you. If you change your name legally, you're still you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we're going to move on.
So
somehow my mind always thinks it knows what should be happening at all times, though I just showed up a few seconds ago. So that goes back to the relative scheme of life. How long have we really been here? How long has the universe been here? And how long did we get, 70 or 80 trips around the sun? The universe has been here for 13.8 billion years, and we get to be on this spaceship in the middle of nowhere. And
it's crazy because to think about it, we've only been on the Earth for, such a sliver of time, just a small portion of time. There's so many events that have happened in the previous years and in the past that we don't even know about. And the thing is, it's like, I think I said this on the last podcast, is when we think about elderly people and the experiences that they've lived through and the stories that they're able to tell now, I think it's really important that we understand some of the circumstances that they lived through, right? Taking some of the knowledge that they can apply to us and that we can apply that to our daily lives, because I've only been on this earth for 18, I'm about to be 19. I've only been on this earth for 19 years. I've only seen 19 years through my eyes. So I've only seen my life as my perception of what I see it as. I've seen it as my conscience of what I think of, how I perceive things. I've only seen it from my point of life. I haven't seen it from their perspective. I haven't seen it from your perspective. I can't see it from your perspective. Why? Because you're you and I'm me, right?
And then we're convinced that we know why people did things, and we're convinced that they did it to annoy me. And I know so many people. I used to be like this.
And that's the mindset, though. That's your mind. Why? Because you're so used to living how you live that it's hard for you to change your perspective on things.
It is.
It's hard for you to change your mindset.
But it's not impossible. Remember that. It's not impossible. There is hope at the end of the tunnel. I'm still working on it myself, and I know Christian's still working on it himself too. But at the end of the day,
it's a work in progress.
Yeah, like we're so convinced that we know how people should act. We know what they should say. We know how they should speak. We know how they should drive. Like, we're so convinced.
And it's not even, we think that it's the how, but it's the want. It's because we want them. I'm talking about from like our perspective, our mindset. It's like how we want them to do things, right?
How we think they should.
How we think they should.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And we have to change that mindset of like everything has to do it my way, right? And that's like that whole perspective on life. I think once you're able to open yourself up and be able to change that mindset, it's really a liberating thing, because now I think you can see life just a little bit more clearly when your mindset and you have a more open perspective on things. I think it's really liberating, and that's still something that I work on too. Is changing my mindset and just saying I want them to do it this way. Well, that's just me. That's greedy. That's selfish of me to say that they should do it my way when they live life their own way. Yeah. So I should be like, hey, they're doing their life, I'm living my life. And then let's keep it that way.
Then the question becomes, what makes it so that I think that I know what should be happening? I just showed up here literally half a second ago.
Honestly. And I think it comes down to, your ego. I think ego plays a part, and I think it's just also our mind saying that we have this viewpoint of ourselves, right? We view ourselves a certain way, and because you do it every single day, and you become so accustomed to it. So now there's like when somebody does something different, it's like, oh, why did they do that? Why didn't they do it how I do it, right? Because you're so used to yourself doing it. So now you become like, Why they do it that way? They should have did it my way. My way is 10 times better. That's not necessarily the mindset. They do it their way because they're so accustomed to doing it their way. It's their life. Why would they do it your way when they don't even know you? How is that possible?
All these past experiences is the reason why everything happens, and I never want that to go under the radar. And I don't think there's many people that would doubt that, you know?
Absolutely.
There is a reason that everything happens, and the reason it happens is because of all the forces that have ever happened in the entire history of the universe. That is why that happened.
And, you know, I was listening to a message my pastor was speaking the other day. Actually, it was this Sunday. And he said the brain makes upward of 35,000 decisions a day.
Really?
Think about that. 35,000 decisions a day.
Oh, really? Is it that high?
Yeah, it's that high.
Man.
And he said that, and I had to think about that because...
Is that right?
We make a lot of decisions in a day that we don't even consciously think about.
You mean even what you want to say?
Even
is a decision.
How you want to move, what you want to say. Are you gonna blink? Are you gonna do this? Are you gonna pick that water bottle? Like it's like we make so many decisions that we're not even conscious about. But then when we think about it, it's like we really do make a lot of decisions every single day.
That's crazy, and a lot of that comes from the subconscious mind. So you can't even you'll never even. Well, you could, but it's very difficult to even notice when you are making these decisions. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's nuts. We're gonna move on. That's crazy.
So as if my mind.
Yeah. So we're on as if my mind even has the capacity to fathom what's happening at any given moment, why it's happening, or much less how it should be happening. We just
really kind of touched on it, which is crazy because
dude, these just lead perfectly into the next one, the conversation. So we just gonna keep it moving because I think we're probably running up on the time here.
Let's keep moving. So in other words, I am in a fight with the present because it doesn't match up exactly to how my mind says any particular moment is supposed to unfold.
Yeah, that's great because it basically says, like you were saying with the decisions, your mind is also simultaneously making up how it thinks everything around it should be. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't match up exactly to what it's saying it should be like, then your mind has a problem and you're suffering. Like we said, because you fear that it might be a certain way, or you want it to be a different way than it is.
And I think that when our mind wants things to be a certain way, and ourselves as humans want things to be a certain way, and it doesn't come to that outcome, I think we get disappointed with ourselves. I think we kind of bruise ourselves because we think we're holding ourselves to such a high accountability that when we don't get there, it's disappointing. But that's just the natural mind to want to be on a higher level. What we have to understand as humans, as people, is that we're not perfect. We're not always going to be where we think we should be. But there is a reason behind why. And I think that is because, number one, in life, you should always want to elevate yourself.
Absolutely.
I think the goal is to always get better, that 1% every single day. But also know for yourself, you have to give yourself room. If you don't give yourself any room to grow, there's really... You're just keep holding yourself in a box. You got to give yourself room to grow.
It's so important. It's so important. And because we're running up on the time, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna read two on this one.
Let's keep going. We're gonna be good.
The next one, the next two actually kind of intersect. You can read it if you want.
So it says, on top of all that, all my mind can ever talk about is me. My opinions, beliefs, and how the reality of life compares to my mental model of how life should look, despite the immensity of the unknown. And then I'm going to read the second one. It says, I can't blame my mind for this, though. For my perspective is all it's ever known. I think I'm going to touch on that one, that second part right there, because the first part was actually really good, because it's all I could ever talk about is me, because that's all we know. This is your beliefs, your opinions, all that.
Simple, yeah.
We got that. The second part, I can't blame my mind for this, though. For my perspective is all it's ever known. And that's very true, because that's all we know. Like I said, you're so used to living your life, you're so accustomed to the things that you do every single day. It becomes habitual. It's natural for you to do that. That's all you know. You can only see from your eyes. What your eyes see, what your vision is, right? That's all you can see, your perspective, right? Like I said, I can't live your life, and you can't live my life because, why? Because we're here as humans. This is who we were born to be. Yeah. This is who we were born as. So, it's like, all you can really see is your perspective. But if you only keep it your perspective, you trap yourself. when you allow yourself to open and change your perspective, it liberates you. So think about that.
You have to allow yourself to change perspective. Because if you don't, at the end of the day, how are you going to get any growth?
Absolutely.
How can you get any growth if you're not going to sit there and consciously change?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to subconsciously change, without effort.
I mean, as life goes, I hope that your mind and your mental grows, right? And be able to, learn new things and open your mind to new things, right? But you have to be able to allow yourself to learn different things and put yourself in different scenarios where your mind has to constantly think about different things.
Because, yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you this, I'm in a point in my life where I feel like every single day, it almost feels like I'm a different person.
Absolutely.
Like, I look back on yesterday, I'm like, man, I would never do that. And then sometimes I do that today, but I'm in that point where I just feel like, especially over the long term, years. Oh my gosh, years ago, I was such a different person a year ago, and I know everybody says that. Maybe it's true for everybody. Who am I to say that it's not?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I can guarantee you that I have grown in some aspects of my life. Absolutely. Immensely in the last. In some ways, I've stayed the same. Absolutely. In some ways, I've probably even gotten worse. Mm-hmm. But
I think it's just what you want to work on, right? Because like when we say New Year resolutions, what are you going to work on? What are you going to do this year that's really going to change your life for the better, right? And when it comes down to it, we have to take that self-reflection progress, right? That understanding where we are right now and where have we come from, right?
Where we want to go.
And where do we want to go, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But before knowing where you want to go, what have you come from? What have you dealt with? What has changed you to become a better person that you are right now? Now you take a reflection on yourself right now and you think about something that's going to allow you to become better in the future. Because you've already come to a certain point, right?
Yeah.
Now it's time to take what you've learned and how far you've come and now continue to get better going on into this next year.
Got you, man. That's great. And I'm going to read this last part, and this is honestly one of my favorite parts. If not my favorite part. So it says, I have to use these truths to liberate myself from the false sense of control that is produced by my mind's incessant narration and correction of a life that can only be experienced one moment at a time. So I can go ahead and take basically, break it down piece by piece there. So the mind is constantly, we already touched on how the mind is constantly narrating and correcting each moment for how it thinks it should be, how the mind's model of what everything should be.
Absolutely.
That takes away from the present moment. We also touched on that earlier. That takes away from the present moment. In a life, we can only experience one moment at a time. Mm-hmm. So when we sit there and our mind is correcting and it should be this way and I hate that this happened and this should not have happened and you're suffering because things happened that you didn't want. Mm-hmm. It takes away and it gives you a false sense of control over a life that you can only live one moment at a time.
Absolutely.
So the reality is if you're sitting there listening to your mind and how it should be, how it would be so much better if it wasn't the way that it is, you're missing out on that moment that you can, that life you can only experience at that moment in time.
And I think a lot of times we live life as what it should be, but you have to live life on how it is. You can't live life on how it should be. Because if life was going how it should be, you would be in way better positions than you are right now. But that's not how life is. You have to understand that you have to live life in the present moment for what it is. So whether the grass is green or the grass is blue or the grass is purple, whatever color the grass is, you got to understand that no matter what it is, you have to live it for that present moment. Now, if you want the grass to be a certain color, you have to do things to change the grass's color. If you want the grass to grow, you have to give it the necessary nutrients for it to grow. So you have to nurture yourself and allow yourself to grow and give your mind things that's going to allow it to grow too. So what does that mean? You got to learn every day. You got to take necessary steps to better yourself every day, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's reading a book, whether that's watching an investment video, whether that's doing anything that's going to better yourself every single day. Like I said, it's getting better 1% every day.
1%.
As long as you're doing something that makes you better tomorrow, you've already come further than what you were yesterday. So now you have to allow yourself to be in a state of mind that not everything is what it should be. But I know that if I live on base what it is, I can get better for tomorrow and create my better tomorrow for what it really should be.
And it even like it circles back around what you just said, which is a great point. Again, we say this all the time.
I hope y'all been listening to this whole podcast, man.
This one's good.
Fire.
This one's good.
We're gonna create more content for y'all, I promise.
Yeah, absolutely. And it circles all the way back around to the first sentence. My life is about me, and not about anybody else's. So, like you just said, you have to sit there and get better every single day, each and every day. You have to get better for yourself. All right.
Don't do it for nobody else. I promise you.
Yeah.
Do it for yourself, because all you have is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That same person that you have in your life might not be here tomorrow for you. So you got to understand that life is a journey and is a process, but you have to apply yourself.
But also, never, ever, ever forget that just because your life is about you.
Don't forget the other people that are in your life too.
Don't forget to help others.
Yes,
You know, don't forget that life itself is not about you.
Absolutely.
So to better yourself, you have to better yourself in order to help others.
Mm-hmm.
There's this quote. I forget who said it. I think, man, I wished I remember who said it. But he said, I was in search for God and all I found was myself. And I searched for myself and all I found was God. We're going to leave it right there, y'all. We're going to leave it right there. I appreciate y'all for listening.
Crazy.
Please keep watching. Leave a like, sub, whatever. You know, if you like it, like it. If you don't, whatever. We're going to keep making this content anyway because we genuinely think this is something because I know it's helped me.
And it's definitely helped me. So if it helped both of us, we pray and we hope that it could definitely help and benefit your life. You know what it is. Everything is everything. I'm Christian. This is Chris.
You know we're praying for y'all.